Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. It's supposed to be a warm day today, which is a change from what it's been the last couple of days. And then tomorrow, back to being cold again. Probably won't even be above freezing all day. So it's a roller coaster this week. Today it's supposed to be like almost 60 or something, but windy. It's that time of the year. Can't make up its mind what it wants to be. Yesterday was just a crazy busy day for me. Not that probably most of you care, but goodness gracious, you ever just have one of those days where you just feel like you're running a marathon all day, and none of the stuff that I was busy doing was like critically important or anything. It was just a lot of things I had to do, and then, you know, kind of how my life is around here. There's always someone or something that just pops up out of nowhere, and it just was crazy. Probably should add that to our level, our preparations, because as things kind of start to spiral and get worse, and we get closer to that SHTF kind of world, it's going to be busy for us. And I really think that this is not the video topic, but I think that people should start. Some of you handle this well, but working on how to deal with stress, physical stress, mental stress, taking care of your body, healthy, your mindset. I talk about that a lot because I think as things start to worsen, get worse, that's going to be a struggling point for a lot of people. Is just handling the busyness, handling the stress, handling the drain on our system. Anyways, I just thought I would randomly mention that. Joe Biden went to Africa yesterday, or the last couple of days, and when he was there, he announced that we, meaning you and I, because it's our money, we are sending $1 billion in aid to Africa to help with disasters that they've had there and everything. And I, based on history, I'd say that very little of that $1 billion will actually make it to the people. But the reason why I point that out, not just that we're sending $1 billion of our money to Africa, but at the same time, there are still many, many, many people that were affected by Hurricane Helene in the Carolinas and that area that are still struggling. There was a video of this one lady. Her house was completely demolished due to that, and she had applied for a government loan, and they told her that it's not that you don't qualify for it, it's that there's no money available. We don't have any money. We got to wait for Congress to approve a new budget and approve more spending because there's no money there. I mean, we can send billions and billions to Ukraine. We can send another $1 billion to Africa, but we can't take care of Americans here on American soil. And it is truly tragic what's going on there, but and not to diminish that at all, that's actually quite common in the United States when it comes to any kind of disasters with U.S. citizens. I mean, go back and look at what happened and what's still going on in Hawaii there at the Maui fires. Most of the time when there's some kind of hurricane or floods or tornadoes, U.S. government really doesn't pull through. And a lot of times the state governments don't pull through. And a lot of times the local governments, it's not that they don't pull through, is that they don't have the money and the resources. They just don't. Your local, most of your local little counties and stuff, they can't afford to go through and like, oh, here, we'll replace your car and we'll build your house and that kind of stuff. And so the point is that, and I say this often, but I say this often because it needs to hit home to a lot of you, to the point that it is a major focus of how you adjust your preparations, is that they're not going to be there for you, folks. They're not going to help you. Not just rebuild your home and replace your car and stuff, but they're not going to be there in any positive way, regardless of what type of disaster it is. I mean, they're taking children from people's homes in North Carolina because they don't have the proper housing for them. But yet they can't get proper housing because, when temporary housing comes through with the Amish little cabins, they say that's not proper housing. And then there's no loans and stuff available for these people. A lot of those areas were not flood zones, so they didn't have flood insurance. And it's too bad for you, but we're going to take your children. We're going to fine you. We're going to kick you out of your house, whether it's falling apart or a temporary housing, because that's not good enough. But we don't have anything to offer. So we're going to use the strong arm of the law to restrict and take away from you, but we're not going to use that same law to help you. And that's exactly what's going to happen to those of you that find yourself in maybe a similar situation. And it doesn't necessarily have to be natural disaster. It can just be a breakdown of the system, social unrest, the grid going down, an attack from outside or inside terrorist attack. I have spent pretty much my entire life, my career, the work that I've done, working inside and around and with some level of government. Sometimes I worked in the private sector, but worked, all of that. I've had someone the other day email me and said, I think you said one time you worked for FEMA. I've never worked for FEMA, but I have worked with FEMA many, many times. I'm very familiar. In fact, just the other day, met with a FEMA representative for a brief moment because of the recent disaster that we had here. So I'm very familiar with all that. And I'm telling you that those agencies, those entities, they're not going to be here to help you. At the very least, they're going to make your life more complicated. And that's sad. Because we are the ones paying for it. There's, billions and billions of dollars a year put into developing all of this. And they spin it as it's there for us to help us when there's bad things happen, but it's just not going to happen. And I don't think it's just an accident that it's that way. I think it's purposely built to be like that. And you have to realize that they're not going to be there, and not even the government. You can't depend upon that, if something bad happens, that the insurance is going to replace everything. We had some friends of ours a couple of years ago. I had them on this channel a couple of years ago, and their house was burning in a fire. It was a complete accident. Something shorted out and burned their house to the ground. They had several children, and it was pulling teeth to get the insurance company to pay out. They lived in a hotel for a long time. They were struggling and they lost everything. It was a complete total loss, and they had full coverage, great insurance, but the insurance company kept throwing these little roadblocks out there. And maybe that doesn't happen every time, but that happens often. And so we live in this modern society, this very developed, convenient world, and we've built these safety nets for us, insurance companies, law enforcement, 911, state government aid, federal emergency management, all these different things that when there's a tragedy, they're supposed to be there to help, whether it's your house gets burned to the ground or washed away in a flood, or the grid goes down, or you become ill for a extended period of time and you can't take care of things. That we've built all of this infrastructure of aid and assistance, and the reality is that more times than not, it doesn't really work. It doesn't help. And then there's all these little loopholes and these little catches and catch-22s, and like, well, okay, well, we can't replace your home because these little loopholes and that you have to jump through. But since we can't replace your home, you can't exist with children with no home, so we're going to take your children from you. And oh, you're trying to live in your falling apart house that we aren't going to help take care of, or your insurance company isn't paying for. Well, that's a crime, so we're going to arrest you and throw you in jail. I mean, it's this absurd bureaucracy, and that's putting it very lightly and just scratching the surface. You and I, as preppers, folks that are trying to live self-sufficient, and that self-sufficiency shouldn't just be to live in a way that we don't have to have the grocery store if that happens, right? I mean, you still use the grocery store, but if that went away, or if you didn't have access to it, or if it was the food was so utterly contaminated that you can't eat it, that you figured out a way that you can live on your own. You can grow your own food, right? We should be that same way and strive for that same level of independence and self-sufficiency when it comes to taking care of ourselves in disasters. And I know it's hard. I get it. Like I said, I've worked in and around this kind of stuff my whole life, and I understand. It's your house gets blown away. Maybe you still owe money on it, so now you owe the bank for something that doesn't exist. Maybe the insurance isn't paying out because of some crazy loophole. Maybe they're not paying all of it out. Maybe it's just barely enough to take care of that loan, but then now you don't have a house. I mean, there's all sorts of scenarios, and they many times don't end up being good for you. And because of that, we have to realize that it doesn't have to be the end of the world apocalypse scenario. It can just be another flood, another hurricane, another tornado, another ice storm, another earthquake, another wildfire, riots in the streets. There's all sorts of scenarios, and we need to become the least level of dependent that we can be. And that's a journey. That's not something you're going to do overnight. But it's something that we need to do. Every time, if you've watched my channel for any length of time, every time there's some kind of big natural disaster or just some kind of event, especially here in the United States, I say the same thing every time. Pay attention to what's going on and learn from it. Watch how the government reacts to it. Watch how the people are reacting to it. Watch how the people are reacting to the government's reaction. Learn from this. Learn from what's going on. Pay attention to how things are transpiring, so it gives you a good idea of what you will have to deal with when something of that magnitude happens. Because I think most Americans, sleep good at night because they believe that if anything really bad happens to them, it's going to be taken care of. Same way with health insurance. How many times maybe you or people have health insurance, and then some kind of major health problem comes that costs them lots of money. They have to be off of work, and it doesn't cover things. Car insurance, same thing. This idea that we're paying this money, and I'm not trying to discourage you from having these things. I'm just trying to give you the reality that if you, it's no different in my mind than people that send their children to public school and then don't feel that they have any responsibility anymore for their child's education because, well, the schools, the government's taking care. They're teaching, they're educating my children. No, it's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to make sure that you can take care of your family if there's a tragedy. It's not the insurance company's responsibility. It's not FEMA's responsibility. It's not SEMA's responsibility or anything else. It's your responsibility. And if any one of those things actually work the way they are supposed to and they help out, that's great. But you can't live your life just completely dependent that these things will happen, we'll step up and fix the problem if something bad happens. And so I don't have to worry about it. That's a big reason why, a lot of things are in the shape they're in. People do the same thing with government. Oh, I'm just going to vote for this guy because I think he's the best, and just trust that he'll just handle things, and I'll just close my eyes and go on with my life and let him handle it. No, we are responsible for these things. We have to take back that responsibility, and we have to be prepared as much as possible for when these tragic things happen, because there may not be anyone else there. Just may not. This is why small, close-knit communities, to some extent, whether it's your little mag tribe or just the people that live around you, healthy, functional communities are so important, because it's more likely that community will pull together and help each other out than it is that the government on any level is actually going to be there to help out. And we have to realize that. We have to start adjusting our lives and our preparations for that. That's why oftentimes, really push, to have plans for if there's a fire or some flooding or, something on your property is destroyed, because you can't just believe that it's going to be there. And then there's also the next level of issue is that it may not be there because it no longer exists. There may be such a breakdown in the system that insurance companies, they're bankrupt. They don't exist. The government's just not in a, strongly functional way to do anything. That has to be part of our preparations, not just producing our food and, guns and medical. Those are super important, should be your top priorities. But this kind of stuff should be in part of your preparations too. Because you can't have this blind faith that government's just going to be there to help, because time after time after time again, they have proven that they're not there to help. They're just there to make things more complicated, and that's putting it extremely lightly. It many times is even worse than that. So you need to step up, take the responsibility for yourselves, and do the best you can to figure out a way to become less dependent on that. It doesn't mean you don't use it. It just means that if it doesn't function, it's not the end for you. It's time to get your houses in order and to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.